When she opened the hidden panel, the air smelled like someone was still living there. The road ended where the forest thickened, and Evelyn Mercer, 70 years old and out of options, stepped out into a silence that didn't feel natural. The house sat low against the earth, almost hiding. Then Rex stopped, ears sharp, body locked. And before she touched the key, she heard it too. A slow, deliberate step from inside. If you were in her place, would you still unlock that door or turn back right there? The road narrowed long before the trees did. Evelyn Mercer noticed that first. Not the forest, not the silence. The road. It had been paved once, years ago maybe, but now the asphalt broke apart into patches, then gravel, then something softer that gave slightly under the tires. The kind of road that didn't lead anywhere people visited twice. She slowed the car without thinking. Rex shifted in the passenger seat beside her. Not restless, just alert. His head angled slightly toward the windshield, ears lifting a fraction higher than usual. "You feel it too?" she murmured, more out of habit than expectation. The dog didn't move, didn't blink, just watched the line where the road disappeared into trees. The light was thinning, late afternoon slipping toward evening, the kind of hour when colors flatten and shadows stop behaving like shadows. Everything looked quieter than it should have been. Evelyn tightened her grip on the steering wheel. She hadn't driven this far in years, not alone, not since before her husband passed, back when long drives still felt like something you planned, not something you ended up doing because there wasn't another option. The engine hummed steadily beneath her, old but reliable, like most things she kept around. The trees closed in, tall pines mostly, straight trunks, thin branches high above, their needles whispering against each other in the wind. The sound was soft, constant, almost like breathing. No houses, no fences, no signs. She checked the paper directions again, folded and refolded until the creases had worn pale. The address was still there, though it didn't look like much. A set of coordinates more than a place. "Should be close," she said. Rex finally moved. Not much, just a shift in his posture. His body straightened, weight settling forward, as if something ahead had stepped into focus. Evelyn followed his gaze. At first, she thought she'd missed it. Then the shape separated itself from the land. The house didn't stand the way houses usually did. It didn't rise, didn't present itself. It seemed pressed into the earth. Low, uneven, its roofline sloping in a way that made it look almost like a natural formation from a distance. Brown-gray boards, weathered but intact. No visible damage, no broken windows. Just stillness. She eased the car to a stop. The engine ticked as it cooled. The sound echoed slightly in the quiet, louder than it should have been. Then it faded, and nothing replaced it. No distant traffic. No voices. Not even birds. Evelyn sat there a moment longer than necessary, hands still on the wheel, breathing slow. Rex stood up. That was the first thing that felt wrong. He didn't wait for her to open the door, didn't look at her for permission. He stood, muscles tightening under his coat, ears lifting fully now, his eyes fixed on the house. Not curious, not excited, focused. Evelyn felt it then. Not fear, not yet. just a shift. Something quiet, settling in her chest. "Easy," she said softly. She opened her door. The air outside was cooler than she expected. Damp, but not unpleasant. It carried the scent of pine and earth, something faintly metallic underneath that she couldn't quite place. Rex jumped down beside her. He didn't move forward. That stopped her more than anything. Normally, he would circle, check the perimeter. Nose low, tail steady. He'd done it at every motel, every unfamiliar stop since they'd left the city. Not this time. He stood beside her, still, watching. Evelyn closed the car door slowly. The sound seemed to travel farther than it should have. She picked up her bag from the back seat. Just the essentials. No reason to bring everything in yet. She wasn't even sure she'd stay the night. The ground under her shoes was uneven, packed dirt with patches of dry grass, brittle underfoot. The house sat maybe 20 yards ahead. Not far. But it felt longer. Each step took a little more attention than it should have. Rex moved with her now. Close. Almost too close. His shoulder brushing her leg once, twice as if adjusting his position without quite settling. "Okay," she whispered. "We're just looking." The front door came into view. It was smaller than she expected, set slightly lower into the frame, like the whole structure had sunk over time, though the wood around it looked solid. No peeling paint, no rot. Just age. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the key. It was heavier than modern ones, cold against her fingers. For a moment, she just held it there. Then she stepped up to the door. Rex stopped. Completely. His body went rigid, not aggressive, not defensive, just locked. Evelyn felt the tension travel up her arm. "Rex?" No response. His ears were forward, eyes fixed somewhere beyond the door. Not at it. Through it. Listening. The forest behind them breathed softly. A low wind moved through the trees, branches shifting, needles brushing together in a dry, steady whisper. Evelyn held her breath without realizing it. Then, she heard it. A sound so faint she almost dismissed it. A single step. Inside the house. Not a creak, not settling wood. A step. Measured. Deliberate. Weight placed and lifted. Evelyn's hand tightened around the key. Rex didn't move, didn't bark, didn't growl. He just stood there, every line of his body drawn tight, listening as if the sound had meaning, as if it wasn't the first time he'd heard it. Evelyn swallowed. The door stood inches from her hand. The key hovered just below the lock. She didn't move. Not yet. The silence that followed felt thicker than before. Waiting. Like the house itself had noticed her and was deciding something. Rex shifted slightly, just enough to step closer to her side. Between her and the door, the movement was small, but it said everything. Evelyn stared at the wood in front of her. Old. Quiet. Unremarkable. And somehow, occupied. The key trembled once in her hand, then stilled. She didn't turn it. Not yet. Because inside that house, someone had just taken a step, and they hadn't opened the door. Evelyn stood there longer than she should have, The key still hovered in her hand, just below the lock. Rex didn't move, not even a shift of weight. His body stayed tight, focused on something beyond the wood in front of them. Another sound didn't come. That was almost worse. If it had been wind, it would have continued. If it had been an animal, there would have been movement, scratching, something uneven. But this, it had been deliberate, and now it had stopped. Evelyn let out a slow breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "Could be nothing," she said quietly, though the words didn't settle anywhere inside her. Rex's ears, Bastion, flicked once, but he didn't look at her. She lowered her hand slightly, then raised it again. There wasn't anywhere else to go. That thought came in quietly, without emotion. Just a fact. Behind her, the road, the car, the long stretch of nothing she had driven through to get here. Ahead of her, this. A house that someone had left her. A house that shouldn't have had anyone inside. Evelyn slid the key into the lock. It turned easier than expected. No resistance. No grind of rust. The sound clicked cleanly into the quiet. Rex tensed. The door opened inward with a soft push. No sudden movement. No rush of air. Just darkness. And stillness. Evelyn stood at the threshold, waiting. Nothing stepped forward. No one spoke. The faint scent that drifted out was dry. Wood. Old fabric. Something faintly metallic underneath. The same note she'd caught outside. She stepped in. Rex followed immediately. Close at her side now. Closer than before. His shoulder brushed her leg as if measuring distance. The floor underfoot was solid, slightly uneven, but not damaged. Just off, like it had been laid without worrying about straight lines. Evelyn reached for the light switch by the door. It didn't work. She exhaled through her nose. Of course. The last bit of daylight slipped through narrow windows set high in the walls. Not enough to fill the room. Just enough to outline shapes. A small table. 2 chairs. Shelves built directly into the walls. Their edges rounded, worn smooth. No clutter. No signs of recent living. No sign of anyone at all. Evelyn took another step inside. Then another. The space didn't feel abandoned the way empty houses usually did. No stale heaviness. No thick dust in the air. Just quiet. Too quiet. Rex moved ahead of her this time. Slow. Measured. His nose lifted, not close to the ground, but angled slightly upward, catching something in the air. He turned his head once and then again, tracing something Evelyn couldn't follow. "Easy," she murmured. He didn't respond. He paused near the center of the room, then looked toward the hallway at the back. Evelyn followed his gaze. A narrow opening. No door. Just a darker stretch of shadow leading deeper into the house. She listened. Nothing. No footsteps now. No movement. Just the faint, steady whisper of wind outside, softened as it passed through the structure. Evelyn set her bag down on the table. The sound felt too loud. She rubbed her hands together slowly, more out of habit than cold. "It's just nerves," she said under her breath. But it didn't feel like nerves. It felt like something unfinished. Rex stepped toward the hallway, stopped again. His ears shifted slightly, catching something distant. Then his body eased, just a fraction, not relaxed, but less rigid. Evelyn watched him carefully. That was how she'd learned to read him over the years. Not the obvious things, barking, growling, but the small changes. The way tension moved through him. The way it faded. "Nothing there?" she asked softly. He didn't look back, but he took one more step forward. Slow, careful. Evelyn followed. The hallway was narrower than she expected. The walls curved slightly inward, giving it a feeling that was hard to name. Not claustrophobic, just contained. The air changed. Cooler, still dry. She passed one doorway. Empty room. Another. Also empty. No furniture. No marks. Just clean surfaces, worn smooth by time. It didn't make sense. If someone had been here, there should have been something. Evelyn stepped into the last room at the end, smaller than the others, a single window set high. The fading light filtered through, soft and gray. Nothing inside. No bed, no chair, no footprints. She turned slowly, scanning the corners. Rex stood in the doorway, watching the room. Then he looked past it, back toward the hallway. His body shifted again. Not tense, not calm, something in between. Evelyn felt it too, that same quiet sensation from outside. Not fear, just awareness. Like stepping into a place where something had happened, but no one had stayed to explain it. She walked back toward the front room. Each step measured, each sound clear. The house didn't echo the way most places did. The sound seemed to soften before it could travel far, as if the walls absorbed it. Rex followed now, closer again. When they reached the entry, he paused beside the door, sat down, not relaxed, just settled. Evelyn looked at him. "You hear it again?" she asked. His ears flicked once, but he didn't move. She turned back toward the interior of the house. Nothing moved. Nothing shifted. Whatever she had heard before, it wasn't happening now. The light outside had dropped further, the room dimming into shadow. Evelyn reached for the door and pushed it closed behind them. The latch clicked softly. The sound stayed close, didn't travel. She stood there for a moment, listening, waiting. Nothing came. But the feeling didn't leave. Not completely. She picked up her bag again and set it near one of the walls. "I'll stay the night," she said quietly. Not because she wanted to, because she needed to. Rex lay down beside the door. Head up, eyes open, watching. Evelyn moved slowly through the space, opening a window slightly, letting in the faint scent of the forest. The air didn't change much. The house seemed to hold its own atmosphere. She found a blanket in her bag and spread it on the floor near the main room. No point going deeper in tonight. Not yet. She sat down, back against the wall. Her body ached from the drive, from the weeks before it, from everything that had led her here. She closed her eyes for a moment, then opened them again. Rex hadn't moved, still watching, still listening, as if he knew something she didn't. Evelyn followed his gaze toward the hallway. Nothing there. No movement. No sound. Just the quiet shape of the house, holding its silence, like it was waiting for her to understand something she hadn't yet asked. Outside, the wind shifted. Inside, the house remained still, but not empty. not completely. Evelyn didn't say it out loud. She didn't need to. The thought settled somewhere behind her ribs and stayed there, quiet but present, like a memory she hadn't fully recalled yet. She didn't sleep much. Not really. Her body rested in short stretches, drifting in and out, never fully letting go. Every time she closed her eyes, she became aware of the space around her, the way the air didn't shift, the way sound didn't travel. And Rex. He never laid his head down. Each time she opened her eyes, he was still there by the door. Same position, same alert stillness. His ears moved now and then, adjusting to something she couldn't hear. Once she thought she caught a sound again. Soft. Too soft to be certain. She held her breath, listening harder. Nothing followed. Morning didn't arrive all at once. It crept in. The light through the high windows turned from gray to pale gold, slowly tracing the edges of the room. The shapes became clearer, the walls revealing their uneven lines, their curved surfaces that seemed deliberate rather than accidental. Evelyn pushed herself up, her joints stiff from the floor. Rex stood immediately. Not startled, just ready. "Morning," she said, her voice rough. He looked at her then, just for a second, then back toward the hallway. Evelyn followed his gaze again. Still nothing. The same quiet stretch of shadow. But it didn't feel the same as it had the night before. It felt settled. She rubbed her hands together and stood fully, stretching her back with a slow exhale. Let's see what we've got. The house looked different in daylight. Not brighter, there wasn't enough light for that, but clearer. The walls weren't straight, not in the way most houses were. They curved gently, almost like they'd been shaped rather than built. The corners didn't meet at sharp angles. Everything softened into itself. She ran her fingers along one section near the doorway. Smooth, warmer than she expected. Not like stone, not like raw wood either. Something in between. Rex moved ahead again, slower this time. He walked the perimeter of the main room, nose lifting slightly, then lowering, then lifting again. Not searching for something lost. Tracking something faint. "Find anything?" she asked. He didn't respond, but he stopped near the table. Evelyn stepped closer. Nothing there. Just the surface. Clean. No dust gathered in the corners the way she expected. That caught her attention. She looked around more carefully. The shelves, no thick layers of dust. The floor, light markings, but not the kind left by long neglect. It wasn't freshly cleaned, but it wasn't abandoned either. Evelyn straightened slowly. "That doesn't make sense," she murmured. Rex moved again. Toward the hallway. She followed. This time she took it slower. Each doorway, each wall. She paid attention. The first room empty, but the floor showed faint disturbances. Not footprints, just slight variations in the dust, as if something had brushed across it. The second room, same. The air shifted again as she moved deeper. Not colder, just different, more still. She stepped into the last room again, the one with the single high window. Daylight made it easier to see. Still nothing. No furniture, no marks, no reason for anyone to be here. And yet, Rex didn't relax. He stood just outside the doorway this time, not entering, watching. Evelyn turned slowly in the center of the room. Her eyes traced the walls. Something felt off, not obvious. Just wrong in a way she couldn't explain. She stepped closer to the far wall, ran her hand along it. Smooth. Then a slight shift, barely noticeable. Her fingers paused. She pressed a little harder. The wood didn't move, but it didn't feel quite as solid as the rest. She leaned in closer, studied the surface. The grain didn't match perfectly. Not enough for most people to notice, but enough. Evelyn stepped back. Probably nothing, she said quietly, but she didn't sound convinced. Rex let out a soft breath, not a growl, just air moving through his nose. Then he turned away, back down the hallway. That unsettled her more than if he'd stayed. "Hey," she called softly. He didn't stop. He moved back into the main room and sat again near the door. Like before. Watching. Evelyn stayed where she was for a moment longer, then turned and followed him. The house didn't creak under her steps, didn't shift. It absorbed everything. Even her own movement felt quieter than it should have. She reached the main room and paused. The light had changed again. Brighter now, filtering in at an angle that cast long, soft shapes across the floor. She looked toward the front door. Closed. Still. Nothing beyond it but trees. Nothing behind it but... She stopped. Her eyes moved slowly across the room, the chair near the table. It hadn't been like that before. She was sure of it. Not much. Just slightly angled. Turned a few degrees off from where she remembered placing it. Evelyn didn't move. Didn't breathe. Rex's ears lifted. He didn't look at the chair. He looked past it, toward the wall behind. His body didn't tense. It focused. Evelyn swallowed. "That was me," she said, though the words felt thin. "Must have been." Rex didn't react. He stayed still, listening. Evelyn forced herself to move. Slowly, she stepped forward, reached the chair, placed her hand on the back. It was steady. No scrape marks on the floor. No sign it had been dragged. She adjusted it slightly, set it back the way she thought it had been. Her fingers lingered on the wood. Then she stepped back. Rex's gaze shifted, just slightly, following something she couldn't see. Evelyn turned. Nothing there. The room remained unchanged, still, quiet. But the feeling, that quiet, persistent awareness, it didn't leave. Not even in daylight. She exhaled slowly. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay." But it wasn't reassurance. It was acknowledgement. Something in this house didn't settle the way it should. And Rex already knew it. She just hadn't caught up yet. Evelyn stood in the center of the room, her hand still resting on the back of the chair she'd just adjusted. Nothing moved. Nothing changed. But the space didn't feel the same. It wasn't the kind of feeling you could point to. Not something you could explain to another person without sounding uncertain. It was quieter than before. Not in sound. In presence. She stepped away from the chair slowly. Rex didn't follow her this time. He stayed near the door, watching the hallway again. Always the hallway. Evelyn exhaled through her nose and moved toward the small window, pushing it open a little wider. The air outside slipped in, cooler, carrying the scent of damp soil and pine. It grounded her for a moment. "Just a house," she murmured. But even as she said it, she knew that wasn't quite right. The day passed slowly. There wasn't much to do. She walked the perimeter outside once, careful with her footing, scanning the edges of the structure. No tracks, no signs of anyone coming or going. Just earth, grass, and a narrow line where the ground met the house. The walls were thicker than she expected. The shape of it made more sense from the outside. Low, curved, almost blending into the land. Less like something built and more like something placed there deliberately. When she stepped back inside, the stillness returned immediately. Rex came in behind her, stopped, listened. It was becoming a pattern. By late afternoon, Evelyn's body began to feel the weight of the past few days. The drive, the tension, the lack of sleep. She set a small meal together from what she'd brought. Crackers, a piece of fruit, some water. She sat at the table, chewing slowly, her eyes drifting toward the hallway without meaning to. Rex didn't eat. He stayed near the door, watching. As the light faded again, the house changed. The edges softened. Shadows stretched and settled into places they hadn't been before. Evelyn lit a small battery lantern and placed it on the table. The glow was warm, but it didn't reach far. It left corners untouched. She didn't like that. She stood and carried the lantern toward the hallway. Rex moved immediately. Not ahead of her, beside her, close. They stepped into the narrow space together. The air felt thicker at night, more contained. She passed the first room. Empty. The second. Still empty. At the end of the hall, she stopped. The last room. The one with the wall that didn't feel quite right. She stepped inside. The lantern light pressed against the walls but didn't fill them. She moved slowly, letting the light sweep across the surface. Nothing moved. Nothing shifted. Evelyn let out a quiet breath. Then, a sound. Soft. Above her. She froze. Rex's head snapped upward. The sound came again. A step. Clearer this time. Not imagined. Not uncertain. A step. Directly overhead. Evelyn's stomach tightened. There was no second floor. She knew that. She had walked the entire house. There was nowhere above this room. Another step. Slow. Measured. Then a pause. Rex didn't bark. Didn't lunge. He stood perfectly still, eyes tracking something that moved without being seen. Evelyn felt her pulse in her throat. "That's not possible," she whispered. The footsteps continued. One, then another. They didn't rush, didn't stumble. They moved with intention. Back and forth, as if pacing. Evelyn stepped backward without realizing it. The lantern light trembled in her hand. "Rex," she said softly. He moved then. Not away. Toward her. Positioning himself between her and the center of the room. His body angled slightly. Protective, but controlled. The footsteps stopped. Just like that. Mid-pattern. The silence that followed felt heavier than before. Evelyn held still, listening, waiting. Nothing came. No creak, no shift, no sign of movement at all. Rex didn't relax. He stayed where he was. Eyes still fixed upward. Evelyn swallowed. Her mind tried to find something to hold on to. Old wood, settling beams, animals, anything. But none of it fit. Not with the way the sound had moved. Not with the way it had paused. Not with the way it had stopped. She took another step back, then another. Rex followed, staying close. They moved out of the room together, into the hallway. The air felt slightly different there. Lighter. Evelyn didn't stop. She kept moving until they reached the main room. Only then did she turn. Look back down the hallway. Dark. Still. Empty. Rex stood beside her. His breathing steady, his posture unchanged. He didn't growl, didn't bark. He just watched, as if whatever had been there might come again. Evelyn set the lantern on the table with careful hands. The light flickered slightly as it settled. She lowered herself into the chair. Slowly. Her body felt heavier now. Not from fatigue, from awareness. "That wasn't nothing," she said under her breath. Rex didn't respond, but he didn't look away from the hallway either. The pattern was clear now. The sound, the movement, the pause. It wasn't random. It wasn't the house settling. It was something choosing when to move, choosing when to stop. Evelyn leaned back slightly in the chair. Her eyes stayed on the dark opening across the room. She didn't try to explain it anymore. Didn't try to dismiss it. Because this time, she had heard it clearly. And so had Rex, and whatever was inside this house wasn't wandering. It was aware. It moved with purpose. And it had just made sure she knew it was there. Evelyn didn't sleep at all that night. She tried. She stretched out on the blanket again, pulled it over her shoulders, closed her eyes. But her body wouldn't let go. Every small sound, the shift of air, the faint whisper of wind outside, pulled her back up. Rex never lay down. He stayed by the door, just like before, watching, listening. Once, sometime in the dark hours before morning, he stood and walked slowly toward the hallway, not tense, not hurried, just drawn. Evelyn sat up immediately. "Rex." He stopped, looked back at her, then returned to the door. He didn't go any farther. That was enough. By the time light came, thin and gray through the high windows, Evelyn felt hollowed out. Not panicked, not even frightened in the way she expected. Just worn thin. She stood slowly, rubbing her hands over her face. "Okay," she said quietly. The word didn't mean much. It was just something to say. She stepped outside for air. The forest looked the same. Still. Calm. Nothing to match what had happened inside. She walked a slow circle around the house again. Checked the ground. Still no tracks. No sign anyone had been near. The car sat where she'd left it. She opened the door, reached in, and turned the key. Nothing. Just a dry click. She tried again. Same result. Evelyn leaned back slightly, staring at the steering wheel. "That's not helpful," she muttered. She stepped out and closed the door carefully. No signal, no working car, and now, something inside the house that moved when it wanted. Rex stood at the doorway behind her, waiting. She looked at him. He wasn't anxious. He wasn't afraid. But he was focused, more than she'd ever seen him. "All right," she said softly. Let's go back in. Inside, the air felt unchanged. Same stillness, same quiet. But now it carried something else. Expectation. Rex didn't go to the door this time. He moved past it, straight down the hallway. Evelyn followed. No hesitation now. If something was here, she needed to understand it. Rex walked slower than usual, each step measured. He passed the first room, the second, stopped halfway between the second and the last, turned slightly, then moved toward the far wall, not into the last room, just before it. He stood there, still, his head tilted just slightly, listening. Evelyn stepped up beside him. This one? She asked. He didn't respond, but he didn't move away either. She reached out, placed her hand against the wall. The wood felt normal at first. Cool, solid. But as she kept her palm there, something changed. It wasn't obvious, just a slight difference, a faint warmth. Not from sunlight, not from outside, from within. Evelyn pulled her hand back slightly, then pressed it again. Same place, same feeling. She moved her hand a few inches to the left. Cool. Back to the original spot. Warm again. Her brow tightened. That's not right, she said under her breath. Rex let out a low breath. Not a growl, just air moving through him. He leaned closer to the wall. Not touching, just near it. Listening. Evelyn stepped back. Looked at the surface more carefully. The wood was the same color, same texture. But now that she was looking for it, there was something off. The alignment. The lines didn't quite match the rest of the wall. Subtle, easy to miss. But there. She ran her fingers along the edge, found a seam. Not wide. Just enough to feel if you knew it was there. Evelyn's pulse picked up slightly. Hidden panel, she murmured. The word felt strange in her mouth, like something from a different kind of story. She stepped back again. Rex didn't move. He stayed there, guarding that spot, watching. Why here? She asked quietly. No answer came, but the question stayed. She moved down the hallway, checked the other walls, pressed her hand against them. Nothing. Cold, solid, normal. Only that one place held warmth. Only that one place felt different. When she returned, Rex hadn't moved an inch. Still listening, still focused. Evelyn leaned against the opposite wall, watched him. You've known this whole time, haven't you? She said softly. His ears flicked once. That was it. Outside, the weather began to shift. Clouds gathered without much warning. The light dimmed again, earlier than it should have. A low roll of distant thunder followed. Evelyn glanced toward the front of the house. Storm's coming. Rex didn't look away from the wall. She let out a slow breath. The air in the hallway felt tighter now, more contained. The warmth behind the wall didn't change, didn't fade. If anything, it felt steadier, like something consistent, something alive in a way that wasn't about movement. Evelyn stepped closer again, placed her hand flat against the surface, held it there. The warmth seeped slowly into her palm. Not hot, not sharp, just present. She closed her eyes for a moment, listened. Nothing. No footsteps. No movement. Just that quiet, steady feeling behind the wood. Rex shifted his weight slightly. Still didn't move away. Evelyn opened her eyes. Looked at the wall. Really looked this time. "This isn't just a wall," she said quietly. The words settled into the space and stayed there. Outside, the first drops of rain hit the roof. Soft at first, then heavier. The sound spread across the structure, steady and constant. Inside, the house remained still. But that one place, that one section of wall, didn't belong to the rest. And Rex wasn't leaving it. Not now. Not after everything they'd heard. Evelyn stepped back slowly, her eyes never leaving the spot. "All right," she said under her breath. "Not a decision. Not yet. Just recognition. Something was behind that wall, and whatever had been walking through the house was connected to it. She didn't know how, didn't know why, but she knew one thing clearly now. This wasn't random, and it wasn't over. The rain settled in fast. Not a passing shower, something heavier. The kind that takes its time. Thick drops against the roof, steady and insistent, turning the outside world into a blur of gray. Evelyn stood in the hallway. Still facing the wall, Rex refused to leave. The warmth behind it hadn't changed. If anything, it felt stronger now. Not hotter, just more present. She stepped away slowly. "Let's give it a minute," she said quietly. Rex didn't follow. He stayed where he was, watching, listening. The sound of rain filled the house, but it didn't echo. It softened as it hit the structure, like the walls absorbed it the same way they absorbed everything else. Evelyn moved back into the main room, set the lantern down, checked the windows, closed them tighter against the storm. The light outside faded quicker than before. The sky darkened until it felt closer to night than late afternoon. She rubbed her hands together, more out of habit than cold. Her eyes drifted back toward the hallway. Rex was still there, unmoving. A low roll of thunder passed overhead. The house didn't shake, didn't creak. It held. That, somehow, made it feel stranger. Evelyn walked back toward him, slowly, carefully. "You're not leaving that spot, are you?" she murmured. Rex's ears shifted, but he didn't move. She stepped up beside him again, placed her hand against the wall, still warm, still steady. Then, a sound. Not from above this time, from behind the wall. Evelyn's hand froze. Rex's body tightened instantly. A soft movement, close, too close, like fabric brushing against wood. Then silence. Evelyn's breath caught. "That's not the house," she whispered. Rex let out a low growl. The first real one. Deep, controlled, not loud, but clear. Evelyn felt it in her chest more than she heard it. The storm outside grew louder. Wind pushed against the structure now, stronger than before. The house didn't resist it. It redirected it. The sound slid across the curved surfaces, shifting instead of crashing. Inside, the temperature changed, subtly, but enough. Evelyn pulled her hand back. The air near the wall felt different, not colder, uneven. She moved toward the center of the hallway, then back toward the wall again. The difference stayed. Rex stepped closer, his body now angled toward the exact spot she'd touched. Another sound. A step. Not overhead. Not distant. Right there. Behind the wood. Evelyn's heart began to pound. "That's someone," she said. Not a question. A fact. Rex's growl deepened slightly. Still controlled. Still measured. The sound behind the wall shifted. A weight moving. Then, nothing. Again. Like it knew when to stop. Evelyn stepped back. The hallway suddenly felt too narrow, too contained. The storm outside pressed harder. Rain hitting in sheets now, wind rising. She turned slightly, looked toward the main room. The lantern light flickered. Not from wind. From something else, the air, shifting. She stepped out of the hallway. Rex followed immediately this time. But he didn't relax. He stayed close, closer than before. The storm peaked. A sharp crack of thunder split the air overhead. The sound rolled through the forest. Evelyn flinched. Rex didn't. His focus stayed inside. The house seemed to respond. Not visibly, but the feeling changed. The air thickened. The quiet deepened. Like everything inside was holding. Waiting. Evelyn turned slowly. Looked back toward the hallway. The darkness there felt heavier now. Not just absence of light. Something else. Rex stepped slightly in front of her, blocking the line. His body firm. Protective. Another sound. Faint, but unmistakable. A step. Then another. Closer. Evelyn's pulse climbed. Her mind raced. There was no second floor, no attic, no crawl space she'd seen. Only that wall, only that place. The storm raged outside. Inside, something moved, and it was getting closer. Rex's growl rose just enough to be heard. A warning, not fear. Evelyn swallowed hard. Her eyes locked on the hallway. The darkness seemed to shift, not visibly, but enough to feel. Then, a soft pressure against the wall, a dull sound. Right where Rex had been standing, right where her hand had found the warmth. The panel. It moved. Just slightly. Barely enough to notice. But it gave. Evelyn took a step back. "That's not part of the house," she whispered. Rex stood his ground. Another push. Subtle. Controlled. Then stillness. Again. Like whatever was behind it was deciding. Evelyn's breathing slowed. Not calmer. Just focused. She moved one step closer, then stopped. The wall, the seam, it was there. Clearer now. She could see it. The panel wasn't fixed like the rest. It had been placed, added, deliberately. Rex's eyes stayed locked on it, unblinking. Evelyn reached out, not touching, just close enough to feel the air. Warm. Alive. The storm began to ease slightly outside, the rain still heavy, but the wind shifting. Inside. Nothing changed. The presence stayed. Quiet. Waiting. Evelyn lowered her hand. Slowly. "We're not alone," she said. Rex didn't react. He already knew. The panel didn't move again. But it didn't settle either. It stayed just slightly out of place, enough to confirm what she already understood. This wasn't just a house, and whatever was behind that wall wasn't trying to get out. Not yet. It was making sure she knew it was there. And now, she did. Evelyn didn't step back this time. The storm outside had begun to settle into a steady rain, softer now, like it had spent its strength. Inside, the air held still again. Quiet. Waiting. The panel hadn't moved since, but it hadn't returned to its place either. It stayed slightly shifted. Enough to see. Enough to know. Rex stood in front of it, not growling anymore, not tense in the same way, but alert. Focused. He glanced back at Evelyn once. Just once. Then returned his attention to the seam. That was enough. Evelyn turned and walked back into the main room. Not fast, not rushed, but with purpose now. She moved through her bag, pulling out what she had, small tools, things she'd brought out of habit more than expectation. A folding knife, a worn screwdriver, a flashlight. Her hands moved steadily, no hesitation. Whatever was behind that wall, it had already made itself known. There was no pretending otherwise. She walked back down the hallway. Rex didn't move aside. He shifted just enough to give her space. Evelyn knelt in front of the panel. Up close, it was clearer now. The seam, the edges, the slight difference in grain where the wood met. This hadn't been built with the rest of the house. It had been added, carefully, hidden. She ran her fingers along the edge again, found the weakest point, slid the tip of the screwdriver in, paused. Her breath slowed. "Okay," she said quietly. Not to Rex, to herself. Then she pushed. The wood resisted at first, then gave. Just slightly. A soft sound followed, wood shifting against wood. Rex stepped back half a pace. Not retreating, just adjusting. Evelyn pressed harder. The panel moved again. A narrow gap opened. Darkness behind it. Not empty darkness. Deep, closed. She stopped. Listened. Nothing. No footsteps now. No movement. But the air that came through the gap. It was different. Stale. Carrying something human. Sweat. Fabric. Time. Evelyn swallowed. "That's not old," she said under her breath. Rex lowered his head slightly, not sniffing, listening. She widened the gap, used both hands now. The panel shifted further, revealing a narrow opening, just enough to see inside. Evelyn picked up the flashlight, clicked it on. The beam cut into the darkness and found a space. Not a room. A passage. Narrow. Walls close on both sides. Wood and something beneath it. Older, rougher. The floor showed marks, not dust. Movement. Recent. Evelyn felt her chest tighten. Someone had been walking here. Recently. Rex stepped forward. Slow, careful. He didn't rush in. Didn't charge. He moved like he understood something Evelyn didn't yet. "Wait," she whispered. But he didn't stop. He stepped through the opening, paused, looked back at her. Not uncertain. Just waiting. Evelyn hesitated only a moment. then followed. The space inside was tighter than it looked. She had to turn her shoulders slightly to move through. The air pressed closer. The smell stronger now. Human. Undeniable. The flashlight beam shook slightly in her hand. She steadied it. The passage extended forward, then turned. Out of sight. Rex moved ahead. Not far. Just a few steps at a time. Stopping often. Listening. The sound of the storm faded behind them. Absorbed by the house, replaced by something else. Breathing, not loud, not clear, but there. Evelyn froze. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. Rex didn't turn, his ears angled forward. The sound came again, faint, uneven. Not footsteps, not movement. Something slower, human. Evelyn's pulse surged. She took another step forward. The passage turned. The flashlight beam followed and revealed a door, not like the others. Smaller, set into the narrow space. Closed, the surface worn. Used. Recently. Rex stopped in front of it. His body still. Not aggressive. Not afraid. Just aware. The breathing sound came from behind it. Evelyn stood a few feet back. Her hand tightened around the flashlight. Her mind raced. This wasn't the house. This wasn't something built into it for structure. This was hidden. Deliberate. A place someone stayed. A place someone was still in. Rex shifted slightly. Positioned himself between her and the door. Not blocking her. Protecting her. Evelyn stepped closer. Slowly. Every movement measured. The air felt thicker here. Heavier. She reached out. Her fingers hovered near the surface. Stopped. The breathing inside paused. Then, a faint sound. A shift. Like someone stepping back. Evelyn's voice came out quieter than she expected. "I know you're there." No response, just silence. But not empty. The kind of silence that listens back. Rex didn't move. Didn't growl. He waited. Evelyn's hand touched the door. The wood was warm. Not like the wall. Different. Lived in. Her breath slowed. She pressed gently. The door didn't open. Locked. Or held. She didn't push harder. Not yet. She stood there, listening, waiting. The space held its breath with her, and for the first time since she arrived. Evelyn wasn't just reacting anymore. She was inside it. Inside whatever this place really was. And whatever had been walking through the house was no longer just a sound. It was here. Just on the other side. Of a door that had never been meant to be found. Evelyn kept her hand on the wood. Not pushing. Not pulling. Just there. The warmth seeped into her palm. Different from the wall behind them. This wasn't stored heat. This was recent. Lived in. Rex stood beside her, slightly forward, his body angled toward the door. Not blocking. Guarding. Inside. The breathing returned. Faint. Uneven. Close enough now that it didn't feel imagined anymore. Evelyn swallowed. "I'm not here to hurt you," she said quietly. Her voice sounded strange in the narrow passage. Soft, but it didn't carry far. The walls absorbed it before it could echo. No response. But the breathing didn't stop this time. It stayed. Present. Listening. Evelyn shifted her hand slightly along the edge of the door, felt the seam, the latch. Not locked, just held closed. That made her pause. Someone was on the other side, holding it shut. Rex's ears flicked. He didn't growl, didn't tense further. He waited. Evelyn drew in a slow breath. "I heard you walking," she said. A small movement behind the door. Barely there. A shift of weight. Then stillness again. Evelyn pressed gently. The door resisted. Not from a lock. From pressure. She stopped immediately. "I'm not going to force it," she said, her voice steady. "But I'm not leaving either." Silence. Then, a voice. Rough. Low. Close. "Who are you?" Evelyn felt something loosen in her chest. Not relief. Recognition. "I'm Evelyn," she answered. "This house was left to me." The pause that followed stretched. Long, heavy. Then the voice again, quieter now. "She's gone, then." Evelyn nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "Yes." Another silence. But different this time. Less guarded. Rex's posture shifted slightly. Not relaxed, but less rigid. The pressure against the door eased. Just enough. Evelyn felt it. Waited. Didn't move. The door creaked softly. Opened an inch. Then 2. The flashlight beam slipped through the gap. Found a face, a man. Older than she expected. Mid-50s maybe. Thin. Unshaven. Eyes sharp, but tired. He flinched slightly at the light. Evelyn lowered it immediately. "Sorry." The door opened a little wider. The space beyond was small, cramped. A narrow room carved into the hidden structure of the house. A bed in the corner. Simple. Worn. A few containers stacked neatly. Water. Food. A lantern on the floor. Still warm. Rex stepped forward slightly. Stopped. His nose lifted. He studied the man carefully. Not aggressive. Just assessing. The man watched him, then looked back at Evelyn. "You weren't supposed to find this," he said. His voice held no threat. Just fact. Evelyn nodded. "I know." Another pause. The man stepped back. Not retreating. Making space. "Come in," he said. Evelyn hesitated only a second, then stepped inside. The air was warmer here, heavier, carrying the scent she'd noticed earlier. Human. Lived in. Rex followed. Carefully. He circled once, slow, then sat near Evelyn's side, still watching. The man closed the door behind them. Not fully, just enough. Evelyn took in the room, every detail, everything placed with purpose, nothing wasted. "You've been living here," she said. Not a question. The man nodded. "For a while." "How long?" He glanced toward the wall, as if measuring time against something unseen. "Years." Evelyn felt that settle. Years, right here, behind the walls. And Miriam, she began. The man's expression changed slightly, softer. She knew, he said. She let me stay. Evelyn leaned back slightly, absorbing it. She built this, she said, glancing toward the passage. The man gave a small nod. Not all of it, but she made sure it worked. For you? For people like me. Evelyn looked at him more closely. Really looked this time. The exhaustion, the guarded posture, the way he kept one hand close to his side, as if ready to move if needed. What happened? She asked. He didn't answer right away. His eyes dropped briefly, then lifted again. Bad situation, he said simply. I needed somewhere no one would look. Evelyn didn't push, didn't need details. She understood enough. And after she died? She asked. I stayed. Why? He gave a small, tired breath. Because it works. The words hung there. Simple. True. Evelyn nodded slowly. The footsteps, the movement, the silence. It all fit now. You move through the walls, she said. He nodded again. Only when I have to. And the sounds, I try not to make them. Rex shifted slightly. The man glanced at him. Dog hears everything, he said. Evelyn allowed a small breath of acknowledgement. Yes, he does. Rex's posture eased just a fraction, not fully relaxed, but no longer on edge. He had made his decision. The man wasn't a threat. Evelyn felt it too, the fear that had built over the past 2 days. It shifted. Not gone, but different. You could have scared me off, she said quietly. The man shook his head. That wasn't the point. Evelyn frowned slightly. Then what was? He looked toward the passage, then back at her. To see if you'd listen. The answer stayed with her, settled in a way she didn't expect. Evelyn exhaled slowly. The tension in her shoulders eased for the first time since she arrived. Not completely, but enough. She looked around the small room again, at the bed, the supplies, the careful way everything had been arranged. This wasn't hiding in panic. This was surviving. Quietly. Deliberately. Rex lay down beside her, for the first time since they'd entered the house. His head lowered slightly. Still alert, but no longer guarding. Evelyn noticed, and something inside her shifted with it. The house hadn't been warning her. It had been showing her, piece by piece, sound by sound, until she understood what was really here. She looked at the man again. What's your name? She asked. He hesitated, then answered. Daniel. Evelyn nodded. I'm not going anywhere tonight, she said. Daniel gave a small, almost invisible nod. Good, he said. The word wasn't relief. It was acceptance. And for the first time since she arrived, the house didn't feel like something watching her. It felt like something waiting to see what she would do next. Evelyn stayed in the hidden room longer than she expected, not because she felt trapped, because she needed time to let everything settle into place. Daniel moved carefully around the small space, not restless, not nervous, just aware. Every motion measured, like someone who had learned over time that noise carried consequences. Rex watched him for a while. Then, slowly, he lay down. Not fully relaxed, but close enough. That alone told Evelyn more than anything Daniel could have said. "You built this?" she asked, glancing toward the narrow passage. Daniel shook his head. "No, she did." "Miriam." He nodded. "She knew how to make things disappear," he said. Evelyn leaned back slightly against the wall. The warmth here felt different now that she understood it. Not unsettling, just part of the structure. "She didn't seem like the type," Evelyn said. Daniel gave a quiet breath. Most people didn't see her at all. That stayed with Evelyn. She looked around again. The room wasn't large, but it wasn't improvised either. Everything had a place. Everything had a reason. "How does it work?" she asked. Daniel glanced toward the ceiling. "The walls carry sound differently," he said. "You hear it where it's meant to be heard, not where it starts." Evelyn thought back. The footsteps above her, the pacing, the pauses. "You were moving here," she said slowly. He nodded. "Sometimes. Not always. Depends on what I need." "And the warmth in the wall?" "Channels," he said. "Heat moves through them, keeps the structure even, harder to track where someone actually is." Evelyn let that sink in. Nothing about this house was accidental. Not the shape, not the silence, not the way it held sound. She stood slowly. "Show me," she said. Daniel hesitated, not refusing, just weighing it. Then he nodded once. "All right." They moved back into the passage. Rex stood immediately, fell into step beside Evelyn. Daniel led this time, his movements quiet, almost instinctive. They walked a few steps down the narrow corridor. Then he reached for a section of the wall. Pressed. Something shifted. Another panel. Hidden. It opened just enough to reveal a second narrow path branching off. Evelyn felt a small shift in her chest. There was more than she had seen, more than she had understood. Daniel stepped aside. "Goes around the outer wall," he said. "You can move without crossing open space." Evelyn looked into the darkness, then back at him. "And you've been using this for years?" He nodded. "Only when I had to." Rex stepped closer to the opening, sniffed once, then pulled back, not rejecting it, just acknowledging. Evelyn exhaled slowly. "This house," she said, almost to herself. "It's not strange." Daniel gave a faint, almost tired smile. "No." They moved back into the main passage, closed the panel behind them. Everything sealed again, hidden. Evelyn followed him back into the main room. The house felt different now, not quieter, not louder, just clearer. She could feel the structure in it, the intention, the way everything had been designed to hold something unseen. Rex moved freely now, not rushing, not guarding. He walked the perimeter once, then settled near the center of the room, watching both of them, but no longer tense. Evelyn noticed it immediately. "That's new," she said softly. Daniel glanced at the dog. "He knows," he said. Evelyn nodded. "Yes, he does." She stepped toward the wall where they had found the panel, ran her hand along it again. The warmth didn't feel strange anymore. It felt functional, a part of something larger. You thought it was something else, Joan, Daniel said. Evelyn gave a small, quiet breath. I thought a lot of things. He didn't press, didn't ask. That seemed to be his way. Evelyn moved back into the main room, sat down slowly. The chair didn't feel out of place anymore. Nothing did. Not now. She looked around, at the curved walls, the narrow windows, the way the light fell in controlled lines. It wasn't built to hide from people, she said. Daniel shook his head. No. It was built to protect them. He didn't answer right away. Then, yes. The words settled. Evelyn leaned back slightly, her body finally beginning to release the tension it had held since she arrived. Piece by piece, the sounds, the footsteps, the movement, it all made sense now, not as something threatening, but as something careful, deliberate. Rex stood and moved toward Daniel, stopped a few feet away, watched him, then sat. No growl, no hesitation, just acceptance. Daniel noticed. His shoulders eased slightly. That's a good dog, he said. Evelyn allowed the smallest hint of a smile. He usually is. Silence settled again. But it wasn't the same silence as before. It didn't press, didn't watch. It simply existed. Evelyn closed her eyes for a moment. Not from exhaustion, from clarity. When she opened them again, the house didn't feel unfamiliar. It felt understood. Not completely, but enough. She looked toward the hallway, the place that had held all the questions. Now it held answers. Not all of them, but the right ones. Rex lay down near her, head resting on his paws, eyes still open, but calm. The house had not changed, not in its structure, not in its design. Only her understanding of it had. And that changed everything. The next morning didn't feel like the one before. The light came in the same way, slow, filtered through narrow windows, touching the curved walls in quiet lines. The air held steady. The structure didn't shift, but Evelyn did. She woke on the floor, her back against the wall, and for a moment she didn't remember where she was. Then Rex moved. A soft stretch, a quiet exhale. He stood, shook once, and walked toward the center of the room. No hesitation, no watchfulness, just movement. Evelyn noticed it immediately. You slept, she said softly. Rex looked at her briefly, then turned toward the hallway. Not alert, just aware. That difference mattered. Evelyn pushed herself up slowly. Her joints protested, but not as sharply as the day before. Something inside her had settled overnight. Not answers. Something steadier. Daniel stepped out from the hallway a moment later. Not hidden. Not careful in the same way. Still quiet. But no longer invisible. He nodded once. Morning. Evelyn returned the nod. Morning. No awkwardness followed. No need to explain anything. They stood in the same space now. Not strangers. Not quite anything defined. But something shared. Evelyn moved toward the window and opened it slightly. The forest outside carried the soft smell of wet earth after the storm. The sky had cleared. The world had moved on. This place hadn't needed to. She stepped outside. Rex followed. Daniel stayed inside at first. Evelyn walked a slow circle around the house. The structure looked the same. Low, quiet, unremarkable to anyone passing through. But now she saw the edges differently. The way the ground met the walls, the way the shape resisted attention. Nothing about it invited curiosity. It avoided it, deliberately. Rex moved freely now. He checked the perimeter once, nose low, tail steady, then returned to her side without urgency. No tension, no warning, just presence. Evelyn glanced back toward the door. "Come on," she said. Daniel stepped out a moment later. Careful, not fearful, just adjusting. The open air seemed to take him a second. He stood still, letting his eyes adjust, his breathing settle. Then he stepped down from the threshold. Rex watched him, then looked away. That was enough. Evelyn turned back toward the house. "We'll need to fix a few things," she said. Daniel looked at her, not questioning, just listening. "The panel," she continued. "It's loose and the latch on the back door, it sticks." Daniel nodded slowly. "I can help." Evelyn considered that, then nodded once. "All right." The work began without ceremony. Simple things first, checking the hinges, clearing debris near the base of the walls, making sure the openings held the way they were meant to. Evelyn didn't remove anything hidden, didn't seal anything permanently. She preserved it, carefully, because now she understood. This house wasn't meant to be changed into something else. It was meant to remain what it was. Daniel moved through the space differently now. Still quiet, still precise, but no longer avoiding being seen. Rex adjusted easily. He followed both of them at times, then settled in the center of the room, watching without concern. By the second day, the rhythm shifted. Evelyn woke earlier, moved through the space without hesitation. The hallway no longer pulled her attention in the same way. The wall no longer held tension. It was just part of the structure. Daniel spent less time behind it, not abandoning it, but not retreating to it by instinct. Evelyn noticed that, didn't comment on it. Some changes didn't need to be spoken. Word didn't spread in any formal way. There were no calls, no messages, but people noticed things. A car that didn't leave. Smoke from a fire that burned steady, not wasteful. Footsteps where there hadn't been any before. One afternoon, someone passed by on the distant road, slowed, looked, then kept going. Evelyn didn't wave, didn't call out. The house didn't invite attention. She respected that, but it didn't mean it was closed. Not anymore. A week later, a woman came walking up the path. Careful steps, hesitant. She stopped a few yards from the house, looked at Evelyn, at Rex, at the structure itself. "I heard someone was here," she said. Evelyn nodded once. "Yes." The woman hesitated, then asked, "Is it safe?" Evelyn didn't answer immediately. She looked at Rex. He stood calmly beside her. No tension, no warning. She looked back at the woman. "It can be," she said. The answer was enough. The woman didn't come closer. Not that day. But she didn't leave quickly either. She stood for a moment longer, then nodded, and walked away. Evelyn watched her go, then turned back toward the house. Daniel stood in the doorway, not hidden, not exposed, just there. Rex moved past both of them and lay down in the shade near the wall. He closed his eyes, for the first time since they arrived. Fully, deeply. Evelyn noticed that too, and something inside her settled with it. The house remained quiet. The walls held their shape. The hidden passages stayed hidden, but they were no longer unknown. They were understood, used when needed, left alone when not. Evelyn stepped inside, ran her hand lightly along the wall, not searching, just acknowledging. The space didn't feel strange anymore. It didn't feel empty. It didn't feel watched. It felt purposeful. And she no longer stood in it like someone who didn't belong. She moved through it like someone who had chosen to stay. Not because she had nowhere else to go, but because she understood what this place was meant for, and what it could be. For someone else. For more than one. She sat down in the chair, the same one she had adjusted on her first day. Now it stayed where it belonged. Rex slept. Daniel moved quietly in the background. The house held them all. Not loudly, not proudly, just steadily. And outside, the forest continued its quiet rhythm, unchanged, unconcerned. But here, something had shifted. Not the structure, not the land, but the purpose carried within it. And for the first time, in a long time, Evelyn didn't feel like she had arrived at the end of something. She felt like she had stepped into something that had been waiting, not for just anyone, but for someone who would understand what it was meant to be and choose it without needing to be told.
That night, Rex didn't stay by the door anymore. He curled up near the center of the room, eyes half closed, like the house had finally stopped asking him to listen. Evelyn sat in the quiet, not waiting for footsteps this time, just noticing how still everything felt when nothing was hidden from her anymore. She talked about that first moment, the sound, the fear, how quickly her mind had filled in the worst version of the truth. But Rex hadn't panicked. He hadn't run. He stayed, listened, and followed the one thing that didn't make sense until it did. And maybe that was the difference. Because sometimes what unsettles us isn't danger, it's not knowing who or what we're sharing space with. Evelyn rested her hand against the wall one last time, not searching now, just remembering. Somewhere behind it, Daniel moved quietly, the way he always had, only now he didn't have to disappear. When something in your life doesn't feel right at the first, do you trust your fear or stay long enough to understand what really is there?